Hello, everyone, and welcome to this YouTube with the whole Nuke product team. First of all, thank you very much for all the feedback that we have gotten around the release, but not just at the release time, but all the help throughout all the beta periods and all the feedback that you have given us from the start of the projects all the way to actually now being able to see them in production. We wanted to be able to, instead of just showing you demos, kind of actually showing you a little bit of the behind the scenes of why we've been doing this and that feedback that has come from all of you on how we are trying to bring things into Nuke that really affect and improve the ways that we are working as compositors and as VFX artists. So with that said, we are going to start with something that we think is about really your day-to-day. So for that, I actually have with me Anaïs Torreblancawa. Before we jump into it, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am Anaïs from Spain. I came to London for the weather and stayed for Nuke.
We all did.
I was a compositor and an editor, and I've been around for 7 years at Foundry.
We have, again, one of the pillars of compositing that we actually tweaked this time. And that is Roto, obviously. What have we done? What was the problems that we knew were there, and how did we try to fix them?
Every artist works with Roto, so everyone knows how the Roto node can become slower and, well, a little bit painful to work really when you're working with large scripts. So we have made a lot of improvements. So no matter which kind of artist you are, you can be working on a keying, cleanup, anything, you will have to Roto. By example, if you have a lot of splines, either you did those in Nuke or you're bringing those from other software, the node itself will be way more stable. But also when you are working it, and when you are working on it and review it in the timeline, the caching process is now way better. So by example, if you are doing specific changes per vertex, or you just do one change in a spline, you will just need to cache those specific frames instead of the whole sequence as before. So the caching improvements is massive, really.
I used to teach Nuke, and we always said, only use this amount of shapes and then have multiple nodes or break it this way. What we're saying is now you actually get back into being able to have all those shapes in a single node. And then when you're making changes, you can actually see them in playback. What else have we done to make those changes easier?
We have also made a couple of things, like the way that we calculate motion blur, it was also quite heavy. We have changed the way that we interact with motion blur from the Nuke side. So nowadays, working with motion blur in Roto tools would be like also faster.
So now you can see the bubbling, because you can play it back. You can see the motion blur, because again, you can play it back, and obviously motion blur is part of that. You can tweak faster for the playback, but at the moment of tweaking, it used to be laggy.
Yeah, correct. We have also made changes there. So if you have a splines and you were like just dragging a few points around, it will be slightly bumpy. Now that whole interaction is also smoother. So it's just like a better tool. That
is, I think, the main thing that we've been trying to do with this, right, is making the node and the core experience faster, having the artists have that interactivity when they're rotoing. We know that Roto is very precise workflows, and by having the interactivity, you will get there. And so we hope that people can now do a lot more with Roto in Nuke.
Yeah. Absolutely. We just want to really hear all the feedback. We have made a lot of improvements. We think that those improvements are very valuable. So now it is time just to put it in the hands of the artists and hear their feedback. And we will be here to listen whatever improvements we need to do from this moment on.
But that's not the only thing we did for your day-to-day and for the node graph. So we actually have a new type of nodes.
Yeah. We actually got a few new type of nodes, but there is one very specific artist tool that I think that is going to be a very nice one. We got link nodes. For anyone that has been working with clone nodes, it will be similar, but yes, better.
You know, all of you that just had a heart attack with the word clones and the battle scars just reopened and things, yes, we are changing that.
Yeah. So for the last years, we actually did a few improvements on the clone nodes, but honestly, they were not enough. We were having some issues when working with clone nodes. What we have decided to do is just create a completely new node, the link node. It will work quite similar as before. You just do a copy from one previous one, but there are two main advantages. One is way more stable. We don't have the same issues as we were having with the clone nodes. And the second one, you actually can adjust specific settings if needed.
So it is a clone, but also gives you the ability to change the thing. So you are actually not having to do what you used before, which was you clone something, and then you realize you needed to change one parameter, and then ended up going like, okay, right, I'm gonna expression link all of this except that parameter.
Correct. No more expression linking if you don't want to. No need for that. So you can just do 5 different clones, which are now links. And if you don't need to change anything, that's fine. And if you do need to, the only thing that you need to do is just go and change the parameter. You don't need to do any expression linking anymore.
So it allows you to do that. It allows you to have kind of overrides into each knob and have that for the different sections. And that is available in every node?
Yeah, in almost every node, yes. In almost every node, yes.
There is a couple of nodes that won't, but the majority will give you.
It's basically, it will work very similar as in the clone node, better, but it will work for the same nodes as we were supporting the clone nodes before.
So yeah, so we think that this one is going to be quite interesting. Hopefully it opens a few of new workflows there for you on every single comp, you know, from great nodes that you link across and you need to change a little bit gain and gamma here and there on the different plates, or, you know, transformations, things like that. This will open a few new workflows and hopefully reduce the amount of expressions that we have in the scripts. We'll talk a little bit more about that later because that is related to some other workflows. But so that was link nodes. There is another thing in the node graph.
Yes, we got another thing. You know how if you're working with groups in the node graph and you want to see what is inside of the group, until now, what you will have to do is basically open a new tab in the node graph. And to interact with those, it will be quite tedious. So at the moment, if you want to, you can just see all the inside of your groups within the same node graph. That basically means that you are able to have better visibility, but also interact with those things. Connect the viewer to different points of groups or live groups. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that is a very good tool. I think that is a very good tool for the artist, to be honest.
It's going to be interesting to see the workflows, right? We know that not everyone, there is bits of workflows where you really want to encapsulate things and just keep them closed there and no one wants to care. But there is also kind of really nice workflows of, you know, you have a matte paint and anything and you want to work, you don't want to see it because it's too big, but if you can actually open it up and see what is inside.
Well, nowadays they can choose. By default, they will always have like a tiny plus symbol, so you can just expand all those groups. But let's say that you don't want to, as you mentioned, like that you just don't care about what's going on in that group, or you don't want to interact with it. You can just disable that. There's no need to work on it if you don't like it. But I think that is going to be quite handy.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about this one because I think it's something that I remember people asking always, can we have retractable backdrops, right? And this kind of does that for you in a nice way. So those are the main 3 things that we have for your day-to-day. There is a lot of other things that we're going to be talking in a moment. But these things, I think, are a main core pillar of compositing with Roto. And then how we take away something that was painful, and we know that clones were painful. We hope that link nodes really replace these workflows, and not just replace them, but add a lot of value into that same space, and have less expressions and things, as I mentioned before, as well as now having the group view and opening or closing them down, or having the option to actually interact with different ways into your node graph and how you construct your node graphs now. So that is what we have in the basics of the node graph, but we're going to jump into a big change that we have done and that the team have been working for a while. This one is probably one of the biggest changes that we have done to Nuke since the beginning, and is something that Anaïs and the team have been working for the last couple of years. We did a preview in 15.1, and now it's coming out fully into a release. But before we jump into the specifics of what that is, I would like to kind of have a conversation. Why did we do this?
Because users wanted it, that's the first thing. Because artists and studios wanted that. But basically, the way that studios or artists wanted to work with Nuke nowadays, it wasn't compatible with the way that Nuke was designed. So back in the day, Nuke, 90s, when it was done for the way that the movies were made at the time. So basically, if they had 8, 10, 12 VFX shots per movie, that's all the VFX shots that they needed to do. So it was basically one script, one artist, one shot. You needed to work in a different script for one shot. That's not really how artists work nowadays. The productions, they require thousands of shots, and a lot of those things are very similar. So you have to do a lot of repetitive tasks, a lot of copy pasting between different scripts. And if you don't want to work with different scripts, you will have to do a lot of expressions, work with views. Basically, yes, do a lot of hacks to work around the fact that we simply don't support a native way to work with multi-shot until now.
Yeah, so it is very interesting because obviously we have been working, like everyone works in a single comp and every shot is a little bit different, right? And so every shot has different bits to be done. But there is a lot of parts that obviously each company have built templating tools, have built ways of doing those multi-shot workflows by adding a lot of expressions or hacking the view systems, as you say. So after all of these conversations over these years around it, what have we actually done to make it native?
So we have done a lot of new features, but basically it all comes to the core thing that is a variable-enabled workflow. So we have graph scope variables, GSVs. For anyone that works with Katana, that is very similar to the GSVs in Katana. It's almost the same. So the whole workflow is basically driven by variables. We got a whole tutorial about this, but let's make it quite simple. If you create a variable called shot, and then you add different values, example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can call that variable throughout your shot, depending if you're working with shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But it doesn't need to be only for multi-shot. You can do a lot of workflows with this.
So it's a full core infrastructure part that is the variable-enabled workflows that enables GSVs, and then we have a bunch of features on top of that to enable, as you say, multi-shot and a few other workflows. We have put tutorials out there for the multi-shot stuff. We won't go fully in detail of everything, but which components then do we have in this release?
Yeah, so the main thing will be the project settings where you have a list of all your GSVs or variables. We have a panel, so artists can work easily with those instead of like having to go through thousands of variables. Just like say, what variable do I want to work on? It could be as simple as shot 3, motion blur off. We also got variable switch, which it works very similar to the original switch, but it is driven by variables. So in the previous example that I did, you can choose if I'm going to work with shot 1, 2, 3 and connect the different inputs. We also got variable groups, which are also connected to the group node internal view, as I was mentioning. So you can work with variable groups or live groups with variables and see what's inside of them as well.
So that's actually an interesting point to bring back, right? So I mentioned before around that people had requested the backdrops to be collapsible. So we decided not to do the backdrops because we added it to the groups, because these workflows allows us to actually have variables attached to those sections and make them scopes.
That's correct. So the part that you mentioned, scopes, that's the main difference compared to Katana. So imagine that you are working with 5 different shots, and you need to do specific changes to one of those shots that is still very similar to the other ones, require more thing. You can do a variable group. That's one of the options that you have, and therefore you will have different scope compared to the previous one. There will be something, let's say, a root level, and then a different scope for this specific shot. That means that you can apply specific changes for that shot way more easily within the same script and also within the same node graph, because you can interact with those.
With the nodes inside the group.
Correct.
Right? Which is probably, we didn't mention it too much before, but it will give you as well a better visibility and readability over your script. And you also have the interactivity of actually working inside it.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you combine that with all the other tools that we mentioned, you suddenly got a workflow that is way more powerful than before, and native and less hacky. And also if you bring back the link nodes, suddenly you can do all those changes that you want way faster, less copy pasting, and do a specific changes for the ones that you need. So for those specific shots, you can just do a specific changes with the link nodes. And I think that is just a way to work a scale way easily.
Actually, that's, again, kind of bringing it back to link nodes, right? We said, well, they're like clones, but part of the thought process of adding overrides to link nodes was that this multi-shot workflow, so now you can actually use it to make the changes for the different shots while you're still controlling multiple areas of the shot at the same time.
Yeah, exactly like that. So if you're working on similar things, I'm always referring to shots, but it's not only that. But if you're working on multiple shots, you still need to do a specific adjustments to all of those. So now it's just like way easier to do those things.
So actually, this actually opens it up, right? Some people will think, oh, this is only for the big shows and you can template this for multiple shots and everything. But we don't think that that's the reality of this, right?
No. Yeah, you can do a lot of things with the variables workflows. 100% you can work with multi-shot if you are having a lot of, if you're working with episodic and you have a lot of similar shots, this will be easier. You can do those templates and you can work, and your artist can work faster instead of spending a lot of time just copy-pasting. But also you can do different changes in your script that will make you work better and faster. Let's say particles, different levels. You can just turn on or off your particles if you want the script to work faster, but also change different settings. Let's say that you want low, medium, or high level on particles depending on the specific shot, or also turn off motion blur throughout all your script. You can just have a parameter that is like motion blur off until the moment of rendering. And rendering, by example, you can also do different settings for render with the variables. It could be also very helpful for studios working with commercials.
So I think that that's an important bit here, right? These are workflows that people have done in the past, again, with expressions and Hacky. A lot of you, and we all have done it, having a no-op or a node somewhere that has, or in the root that has values, and you drive expressions all throughout your script, and suddenly your whole script looks green when you turn the expressions on. How is that different from actually using GSVs for this?
It's easier, cleaner, and more stable. And yes, like a better performance. But also, once the template is done, your artist will be able to interact with those more easily. And the performance is better than working with the other hacky ways. So,
and I think it's important to highlight that, right? And I'm going to drive it into a different point in a second, but I think that it's important to highlight that the expressions, for more that we love expressions, and that's one of the reasons why Nuke is so powerful, it also, once you have a certain amount of expressions, it also kind slow down your scripts and everything. So this is a way to solve some of those problems.
Correct. When you are working with the variables, the overall performance is just better than the expressions.
So the other thing that I was going to pull you into is, because you just mentioned it as well in that workflow, is making it easier to artists to interact with. So how can they, because before they could have this little node, or they have somewhere in the preferences where they have extra kind of things that they had added. What have we done for them to be able to access the variables easier for
them.
them?
So we actually have a panel. So the main place where you will template your variables will be in the project settings. That can grow to a point that you can have thousands of variables per script, and you obviously don't want to look for one specific variable, or you don't want your artist to spend time looking at that. So we have created a panel, and basically once that you add a visibility option within the settings, that variable will appear. That means that you will only need to interact with the things that you want. It can be as simple as on this sequence, on this shot, motion blur off, and I want this render, or sky on, sky off. Or different styles if you want to change between different versions.
I think that's the thing, right? Is suddenly the artists don't have to go and find a given node, or don't have to. We are actually creating a space for the artist or the pipeline to build a whole panel that really is a lot easier to use.
Yeah, it is. The feedback that we had so far has been quite good. So I really can't wait for more studios to play with this and hear their feedback. But we launched this in 15.1 as a tech preview. And there has been already a few studios that have used it in production. So...
That was probably the biggest surprise that we had over the last few months. So we know that most studios take a little bit of time to move into the latest versions. That's completely understandable. People are working their shows, they lock the version that they use, and they wait 6 months or something when the show is over to try and update the pipeline or bring the new version. But with this, we had this beautiful surprise.
Yeah, it was quite great to try to explain a couple of studios how this feature works, but they were able to just tell me, let me show you how we used it in production. We already did. So I think that the set of features is incredibly valuable, and studios are really jumping to use it. So I don't know, the whole team is just very excited to hear about further feedback and to hopefully make artists spend more time being artists and less templating things.
I think that is probably one of the main things that we're trying to do with this, right? Is how do we reduce some of those manual tasks? How do we reduce some of the pipeline efforts that have to be done around all of this to make sure that artists just can enjoy the creative side, dedicate themselves to look at the shots and at the group of shots, find them in context, work in context of the group of shots of this show, season, episode that they're working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's basically it. We just want artists to be able to do those things and spend less time doing repetitive tasks.
So with this, I think we're really excited what people can do with this. We saw it during the beta period and during the tech preview, and we were so surprised that people really jumped. So we knew people wanted it, but that was a massive surprise to see the amount of people that are actually introduced to it. What do we want now?
I would like people to use it. I would like this to be helpful, and I want feedback. Really, I would love to hear how is this solving any problems, and if it's not, what else are we missing? What are the workflows that they are using it that we didn't think about? Because I'm pretty sure that they will be using it for different workflows.
Yeah, are you saying that artists use Nuke in ways that we never thought?
Yeah, I know. Unexpected.
Unexpected ways?
But yeah, we got a lot of information out there. We got the tutorial, we got documentation. I think that we got everything for artists to jump into it straight away. So really, we just want to hear how are they doing.
So with that, obviously that is a massive change to the whole architecture of Nuke. It is probably one of the biggest changes we have done in the lifetime of Nuke. We think that this will really change how we all work and how we comp, how we template, how we do everything around the compositing side based on these new variable systems, how we can simplify that workflow. So please play around with it, but also we are about to go into a live Q&A on this. So let's have a chat about it.